Hey, hello. Tonight you're not in your bed. You're somewhere older, stranger. You're in Egypt around the year 1300 BC. The air is dry and heavy, even though the sun has long disappeared behind the sandstone hills. There's a scent clinging to your skin. Lotus blossoms drifting from a muddy pond, smoke from temple incense, and something sharper. A metallic smell. Like blood or rusted bronze, you might think ancient Egyptian beauty was all about elegance, dark, almond-lined eyes, golden jewelry, and queens like Nefertiti. But that image, it hides something far more dangerous. Think lead, think infection, think of deadly secrets sealed carefully inside polished alabaster jars. That shimmering black powder in your hand, the one you're about to press into your eyelids, it's beautiful under the flickering oil lamp. But it's not harmless. It's galena. And every stroke brings you closer to something your priest will never be able to heal. By the end of this journey, you'll understand why beauty here wasn't just a ritual. It was a risk. One paid not only in gold, but sometimes with your breath. So tell me, what time is it? Where you are? I'd love to know where you're listening from tonight. And if you enjoy these quiet, strange dives into the past, maybe consider subscribing. It truly means more to me than you know. Now, dim the lights. Let your shoulders sink. Let your breath grow slower. Maybe turn on a fan just for that soft hum in the dark. Because you're no longer in control. You're in history now. And history doesn't care if your eyelids blister or if the powder burns. You are waking up. There is no gentle alarm, no soft melody to coax you from your dreams. Instead, it is the sun that wakes you. A blade of fierce white light cuts through a crack in the door, striking the far wall and illuminating 1,000,000 dancing dust motes. You are a servant in a noble's house in the great city of Thebes. Your room, if you can call it that, is a small, windowless space with walls of packed mud and straw. The air is already warm, thick with the promise of another scorching day. You lie on a reed mat on the floor. There is no mattress, no pillow, just the woven rushes pressing against your skin. You can feel the coolness of the packed earth beneath the mat, a temporary relief. You take a slow breath. The air smells of dust of clay, and faintly of the great river Nile, a scent of wet earth and distant water that permeates everything in this land. You sit up, your joints aching slightly. It's a familiar ache, the kind that comes from hard work and a hard bed. From outside your small room, the sounds of the household are beginning to stir. You hear the soft, rhythmic shuffling of other servants' feet on the stone floors, a low murmur of voices. Further away through the walls, you can hear the first stirrings of the city itself, the distant bleating of a goat, the faint shouts of merchants setting up their stalls in the marketplace. This is your world. It is not a world of grand pyramids and golden thrones, not for you. It is a world of stone corridors, cramped spaces, and the relentless, watchful eye of the sun. It is a world of service where your life is tied to the whims and needs of the family you serve. And today, their needs will be great indeed. You make your way to the servants' area, a bustling courtyard behind the main house. Your breakfast is waiting. It is the same as it was yesterday, and the same as it will be tomorrow. You are given a piece of barley bread. It's dense, coarse, and hard. As you chew, you can feel the grit of sand between your teeth, an unavoidable consequence of the stone grinders used to make the flour. You barely notice it anymore. It's just part of the taste. To wash it down, you have a clay cup of beer. It is not the strong, rich beer that your master and mistress will drink at their feasts. This is a thin, watery brew, slightly sour, but nourishing. It is the fuel for your long day. In this land, beer is safer than water drawn directly from the canals, which can bring sickness. So from the highest noble to the lowest servant, everyone drinks beer. It is the drink of life. You eat quickly, standing in the shade of a wall. There is no time to linger. The meal is functional, meant to provide strength, not pleasure. The feeling of true fullness is a luxury you rarely experience. There is always a dull, quiet ache of hunger in your belly, a constant companion. It reminds you of your place. While you chew your sandy bread, you can smell the rich aromas starting to drift from the main kitchen, roasting duck honey cakes, spiced wine, being prepared for the masters. It is a world away. Your world is barley and beer, and it is enough to keep you going. Your life is governed by two things, the needs of your masters, and the will of the gods. And often, it is difficult to tell the difference. Everything is a ritual. Everything has a meaning beyond what you can see. The gods are everywhere. Ra, the great sun god, is sailing his barge across the sky, bringing the dawn. Anubis, the jackal-headed one, watches over the dead and the process of embalming. And Hathor, the golden goddess of love, music, and beauty, is the one your mistress seeks to please the most. Your duties are not just chores. They are rites that help maintain Ma'at, the cosmic order, the balance of the universe. When you sweep the floors, you are not just cleaning dirt. You are pushing back the forces of Isfet of chaos. When you light the oil lamps, you are not just making light. You are honoring the eternal flame of Ra. A mistake, a small act of carelessness, is not just an error. It could be an insult to the gods. It could disrupt the delicate balance. And the anger of the gods is a terrifying thing, bringing plagues, famine, and death. You feel this weight in everything you do. The fear of it is as constant as the heat of the sun. Today is an important day. Your mistress is to attend a great festival at the Temple of Karnak. She must be seen. She must be perfect. And your task, your most important task of the day, is to prepare her for this, to transform her from a mortal woman into a divine presence. In her chambers, the tools are already laid out. An array of jars, pots, and vials made of alabaster ivory and faience. They are cool to the touch, objects of immense beauty and value. There is a small stone palette for mixing powders and slender applicators made of polished wood and bronze. This is the sacred art of beautification. You open the first container, a heavy pot of black kohl. It looks like crushed darkness. Next, a jar of powdered malachite, a green so vibrant it seems to hum with energy. Another holds the red ochre for her lips and cheeks. They look so beautiful, so precious, these colors of the earth. But as you stand there, surrounded by these instruments of beauty, a familiar, unsettling feeling stirs within you. A quiet intuition, a shadow in the back of your mind. You look at the heavy, dark powder on the palette. It is a thing of beauty, but it is also a thing of the earth's deep places. And you know, in a way, you cannot explain that some things buried deep within the earth are not meant for the light, not meant for the delicate skin of a human eye. Your task is to create beauty, but you cannot shake the feeling that you are about to handle poison. You reach for the kohl pot. It is the most important object on the dressing table, more so than the ivory combs or the golden hairpins. It's heavy in your hand, a satisfying weight carved from a single solid piece of black diorite polished to a dull sheen by generations of hands. It feels ancient, timeless, an object of immense power. You twist the lid, a smaller piece of stone fitted so perfectly into the mouth of the jar that it makes a soft sighing sound as it comes loose. A tiny, almost invisible puff of dark powder escapes a ghostly nebula that catches the afternoon light and vanishes. You peer inside. It is not the simple matte black of charcoal. It is not the soft, flaky black of soot scraped from a cooking pot. This is something else entirely, something born from the deep, dark, secret places of the earth. The powder has a profound grayish-black color, and it glitters with a distinct metallic luster. It seems to absorb the light rather than reflect it, a pot of crushed twilight. This is kohl. Not the common paste a market seller's wife might use, but the true potent substance. This is ground galena. You know the story of this powder, a story whispered among servants and taught by priests. It does not come from the fertile black lands of the Nile Valley. It comes from the hostile red lands, the Deshret, the endless desert where the gods and demons wage their eternal war. It is a gift, they say, but a gift that comes at a terrible price. Far to the east, across sun-scorched plains and jagged mountains, are the mines. They are little more than dark, narrow holes driven into the rock where the air is thick with heat and dust. In those mines, men toil. They are not the proud builders of Thebes. They are prisoners of war criminals condemned to labor, or slaves bought from foreign lands. Their lives are short, brutal, and measured in the number of baskets of ore they can haul from the earth's guts. They work by the flickering light of oil lamps, their bodies slick with sweat, and grime chipping away at the dark veins of lead sulfide. They are the first to pay the price for this beauty, their lungs filled with the same dust you now see before you. Many of them will never see the sky again. Their bones will be buried by the shifting sands of forgotten sacrifice. Once wrested from the earth, the raw galena begins its long journey. It is loaded onto the backs of donkeys, a precious, heavy cargo for a long caravan trek across the desert. The donkeys are guided by hardened men who know the secret ways, the hidden wells, the paths that avoid the worst of the heat and the desert bandits. For weeks they travel until they finally reach the life-giving Nile. There the ore is loaded onto barges and begins its slow, stately journey down the great river, passing villages and temples until it reaches the workshops of Thebes. Here, in rooms much like this one, the final laborious transformation takes place. You are the last link in this long, brutal chain. You take a heavy pestle and begin to grind, adding to the fine powder already in the mortar. The rhythmic grating sound fills the room. It is a sound of patience, of transformation. You are not just creating a cosmetic. You are performing a sacred duty. This powder has a power that transcends mere appearance. It is the earthly embodiment of the most potent symbol of protection, the Ujat, the Eye of Horus. You know the story of Horus, the falcon-headed god, son of Osiris and Isis. You know of his epic battle against his uncle, Set, the god of chaos, who murdered his father and usurped the throne. In their violent struggle, Set tore out Horus's left eye. The eye of the moon shattered it into pieces and cast it away. Thoth, the god of wisdom and magic, painstakingly found the fragments and healed the eye, making it whole again. The restored eye, the Ujat, became the ultimate symbol of healing, restoration, wholeness, and protection. When you draw the kohl around your mistress's eyes, you are not just applying makeup. You are magically reenacting the healing of Horus. The two lines you draw, one for each eye, represent the sun and the moon, the two eyes of the sky, God bringing cosmic balance to her very being. This is why the divine statues in the temples have their eyes painted with kohl. This is why the pharaoh himself wears it. It is a shield. It repels the flies that carry disease, yes. It lessens the harsh glare of the sun, yes. But its true power is magical. It is a barrier against the forces of Isfet, of chaos. It deflects the evil eye, a curse sent from a jealous heart. It seals the body from malevolent spirits that seek to enter through the eyes. You pause your grinding and run a finger through the powder. It is incredibly fine now, soft as silk, heavy and cool. You look at this dust born from the suffering of miners carried across the merciless desert and imbued with the power of the gods. It is a substance of profound contradictions of beauty and brutality, of magic and metal, of healing, and something else, a secret danger that no one here yet has a name for. You lift the applicator. The time has come to bestow this power, this beauty, this protection. The time has come to paint the eye of Horus. The time has come to deliver the poison. You approach your mistress. She sits upon a low carved stool of cedarwood, her back perfectly straight, her head tilted back, just so her eyes closed. The air of command she wears throughout the day has softened into a state of absolute trust, a quiet vulnerability. This is a ritual that requires stillness from her and a surgeon's steadiness from you. Your hands, usually occupied with coarse tasks, like scrubbing floors or carrying water jugs, must now be instruments of supreme delicacy. One tremor, one slip, and you could mar the perfect line, or worse, injure her eye. The silence in the room is deep, broken only by her soft breathing and the distant sound of a vendor calling his wares from the street. You gently take her chin in your left hand, your thumb resting on her cheekbone. With your right, you lift the bronze applicator, its tip heavy, with the dark, shimmering powder. You bring it to the inner corner of her eye, the point where the eyelid meets the nose. The bronze is cool against her warm skin. With a slow, practiced motion, you draw the line. You trace the moist pink rim of her lower eyelid, a space so delicate, so alive with blood vessels. The kohl glides on a smooth, unbroken stroke of darkness. You repeat the motion on the upper eyelid just along the base of her lashes, extending the line outwards and upwards into the iconic, graceful shape that mimics the markings of a falcon. The process is hypnotic. But as the dark powder meets the natural moisture of her eye, a silent, invisible chemical transaction begins. The galena, the lead sulfide, reacts with the natural salts in her tears. This reaction, subtle and slow, begins to release free lead ions, microscopic particles of metal, now suspended in her tears. The thin, delicate membrane lining her eyelid, the conjunctiva, is one of the most absorbent surfaces of the human body. It is a direct gateway to the bloodstream. Without any resistance, the lead ions pass through this membrane and are swept away into the river of her blood. This is the great tragic irony of this entire ritual. It is not just a cosmetic art, it is a medical one. You have seen the physicians, you have read the copies of the great medical texts, like the Ebers Papyrus. In those revered scrolls, this very same black powder, mesdemet, is prescribed as a remedy for all manner of eye ailments. It is used to treat infections, to soothe inflammation, even to cure blindness. The physicians believe its power is real. And in a way, they are not wrong. Modern science has found that at very low concentrations, the lead compounds do stimulate the production of nitric oxide in the body, which in turn boosts the immune system to fight off certain bacterial infections of the eye. So the protection is real, but it is a devil's bargain. The very same substance that offers a defense against a swift, visible infection is a Trojan horse carrying a slow, invisible army of poison. Every day she wears this makeup, this prescribed medicine, another small platoon of lead ions enters her bloodstream. The invasion is silent. There is no battle, no fanfare. The body in its ancient wisdom does not know how to fight this strange metallic invader. Lead is a master of deception. It is chemically similar to calcium, the building block of life. And so the body is tricked. It welcomes the poison. It dutifully carries the lead ions to every corner of her being. It deposits them in her bones, locking them away alongside the calcium that gives her skeleton strength. It weaves them into the enamel of her teeth. It allows them to cross the sacred barrier into her brain. It stores the poison, accumulating it year after year, a secret growing burden. For the first few years, the effects are subtle, easily mistaken for the normal trials of life. She might complain of a persistent headache, a dull ache behind the eyes that never truly vanishes. She might feel a deep weariness in her limbs that no amount of rest can seem to cure. Her skin, once so vibrant, might seem a little paler. This is the lead beginning its work on her blood, disrupting the creation of hemoglobin, slowly starving her body of the oxygen it needs. She is becoming anemic, but no one has a name for it. Then, her temperament begins to change so gradually only you can notice. Her famous patience wears thin. Her temper, once like a slow-burning lamp, now flashes like lightning over trivial matters, a dropped vase, a poorly prepared meal. Her mind, once as sharp as an obsidian blade, seems to wander. She forgets names, struggles to recall details of conversations. This is the lead at work, in her brain, meddling with the delicate dance of neurotransmitters, creating static and confusion where once there was clarity. Sometimes, she will be gripped by a sudden, intense pain in her belly, a twisting, burning colic that makes her double over in agony, a pain that comes from nowhere and vanishes just as mysteriously. Her joints ache. A strange metallic taste haunts her mouth. These are the screams of her body, but everyone around her is deaf. These symptoms are so common, so widespread among the elite who use kohl daily that they are simply considered a part of life, a burden of nobility, the price of aging. No one connects the dots. No one looks to the beautiful, ornate kohl pot on her dressing table and sees the true source of her suffering. It is a society-wide affliction, an epidemic of poison hiding in a pot of makeup, a sickness masquerading as beauty, medicine, and magic. The divine eyes are now outlined in protective darkness, but the canvas is incomplete. Your mistress desires color. She desires green, and not just any green. She desires the vibrant living green of malachite, a color that holds the very essence of life, of hope, of paradise itself. Green is the color of the great papyrus fields of Iaru, the heavenly reed fields where the blessed dead live on in eternal bliss. It is the color of new vegetation that springs forth from the black soil after the Nile's annual life-giving flood. It is the color of regeneration, of youth, of joy. To wear green is to wear a piece of heaven on your skin. To wear green is to pay homage to the golden goddess Hathor. Hathor, the Lady of Malachite. She is a goddess of profound contradictions. She is the patroness of love, music, dance, and drunken joy. But she is also the Eye of Ra, a ferocious lion-headed deity named Sekhmet, sent to punish humanity, her bloodlust so great it nearly destroyed the world. She is both creative and destructive, nurturing and terrifying. And she is the patron goddess of miners, the men who descend into the earth to bring her sacred stones into the light. In the distant, terrifying lands of the Sinai Peninsula, a place the old texts call Mafkat, the land of turquoise and malachite miners, have for centuries carved prayers to her into the rock faces, begging for her protection, even as they harvested her essence. They prayed to the Lady of Malachite to keep the tunnels from collapsing, to guide them to the richest veins, and to deliver them from the horrors of the desert. The piece of raw malachite on your workstation is a testament to their prayers and to their suffering. It is a dense, beautiful stone, a chaotic swirl of light and dark green bands like a storm frozen in rock. It has traveled hundreds of miles to be here, first by donkey across the unforgiving heat of the Sinai, then by ship across the Red Sea, then by barge down the Nile. It is a stone that has absorbed the sun, the sand, and the sweat and blood of the men who mined it. And now it is your turn to labor. You place the stone in a heavy diorite mortar, a bowl of rock so hard it will not contaminate the precious powder with its own dust. You take the pestle, a stone baton that fits satisfyingly in your palm, and you begin the work. At first, you must strike the stone sharp, forceful blows to shatter it into smaller, more manageable pieces. The crack of stone on stone echoes in the quiet room. Then, the real work begins, the grinding. You lean your weight into it, moving the pestle in a slow, circular motion, crushing the smaller fragments against the wall of the mortar. It is a test of endurance. Your shoulders burn the muscles, in your back scream in protest, your hands cramp around the stone. Slowly, a fine dust begins to form. And with the dust comes the danger. A vibrant green cloud, beautiful and ethereal, rises from the mortar and hangs in the still, hot air of the chamber. It glitters in the shafts of light like a cloud of tiny, deadly jewels. This is powdered malachite, a form of copper carbonate. It is beautiful, and it is a poison for the lungs. You hold a piece of damp linen over your nose and mouth, a futile gesture against a dust so fine it seems to pass through the very fabric. You can taste its dry, metallic bitterness on your tongue. With every breath, you are inhaling thousands of microscopic sharp-edged particles of copper ore. They travel deep into the delicate branching passages of your lungs, a place they were never meant to be. They settle there, an unwelcome guest that will never leave. Over years of performing this sacred duty, the dust builds up, causing a permanent rattling cough, a shortness of breath that makes climbing stairs an agony, a sickness the physicians call only the grinder's disease. Finally, after what feels like hours, the powder is ready. You gently tip the contents of the mortar onto a piece of clean papyrus. The powder is impossibly green, a color so vibrant it seems to pulsate with its own inner life. It is as fine and soft as silt. This is the essence of Hathor, the color of paradise born from your pain. Later, you will mix it with a little acacia gum or rendered fat to create a thick paste. You will paint it carefully onto your mistress's eyelids. The vibrant green will be a symbol of her health, her vitality, her divine connection. The irony is, a stone in your own gut to create this symbol of life. You must sacrifice a piece of your own. The eyes are now a divine landscape of black and green. But a face without the flush of life is merely a beautiful mask. It needs the color of blood of vitality. For this you turn, not to a rare mineral from a distant land, but to the very earth of Egypt itself. You take a simple, unadorned clay pot. Inside is a powder of a deep, rich, earthy red. This is red ochre, finely ground clay, rich in iron oxide. This is the color of the fiery desert sun at dusk. It is the color of life-giving blood. It is the oldest color, the one your most ancient ancestors used to paint the walls of their caves. It feels safe. It feels honest. It feels like home. The best ochre comes from the south, from the great quarries near Aswan, or from the remote western oases. It comes in many shades, from a bright fiery red to a deep brownish sienna. Your mistress prefers the brightest red for her lips, a color that commands attention. Your first task is to create the perfect consistency. You take a small, shallow dish of polished calcite. Into it, you scrape a measure of the red powder. It is gritty and dry. Next to it sits a small jar of goose fat rendered until it is pure white and almost odorless. You take a small dollop of the fat with an ivory spatula and add it to the powder. Then you begin to mix. The process is slow, methodical. You work the grease into the dry powder, pressing and folding, pressing and folding. At first, it is a lumpy, unattractive mess, but you persist your movements, patient and practiced, until the last of the gritty powder has dissolved into the fat. The result is a smooth, thick, richly colored paste, glistening in the light. This is the ancient lipstick, a recipe passed down for generations. This will bring life to your mistress's face. Applied sparingly to her cheeks, it will give her the healthy, youthful blush of a girl. Painted carefully onto her lips, it will give her a mouth that speaks of confidence, seduction, and power. It seems so harmless, just fat and clay. What could be safer? But the earth is a trickster. It holds its secrets close. The ochre deposits near Aswan are famously pure. But what about this batch? What if it came from a different, less reliable source? Iron oxide is often found in the same geological formations as other more sinister minerals. The miners who dig it from the ground have no way of knowing, no way of separating the good earth from the bad. They look only for the richest color, and sometimes the most vibrant reds hide the deadliest secrets. Sometimes the ochre is contaminated with a mineral called cinnabar, a beautiful scarlet red stone which is in fact mercury sulfide. Other times, the deposit is laced with realgar and orpiment minerals of a startling red-orange hue, which are both compounds of arsenic. This pot of red ochre is therefore a lottery of poison. It is a game of chance your mistress plays every single day. The paste you mix today might be completely harmless. The pot you open next month might be tainted. There is no smell, no taste, no sign to warn you. The arsenic, the mercury, are invisible passengers within the beautiful red pigment. When you carefully paint this paste onto your mistress's lips, you are applying a potential neurotoxin to the gateway of her body. Throughout the day, as she eats, drinks, and speaks, she will inevitably ingest a tiny amount of it. If it is contaminated, the heavy metals will be absorbed by her gut. They will join the lead from her kohl in a silent, deadly conspiracy against her body. The arsenic will cause skin lesions and damage her nerves. The mercury will attack her kidneys and her brain. The beautiful rosy glow on her cheeks will be a lie, a mask for a slow, creeping sickness. The vibrant red of her lips will be the color of vitality, but it may also be the color of a warning, a sign that the very earth she venerates is betraying her, poisoning her with its most beautiful and deceptive kiss. There is another ideal of beauty, one that is perhaps even more important than the decorated eye or the reddened lip. It is an ideal that speaks not just of beauty, but of pure, unadulterated power. It is the ideal of pale skin. In the relentless, unforgiving sun of Egypt, a tan is the mark of the commoner. It is the brand of the farmer who toils in the fields, the fisherman who casts his nets on the Nile, the builder who hauls stones for the great temples. Their skin is darkened by their labor, a testament to a life lived under the sky. But to be pale, to have skin the color of alabaster, that is a declaration. It declares that you do not work in the sun. It declares that your life is one of leisure spent in the cool, shaded interiors of a noble villa or the hallowed halls of a temple. It declares that you are a scribe, a priestess, a noble, a queen. It is a visible, undeniable symbol of your elite status, separating you from the sweating, sun-beaten masses. Your mistress, born with the natural olive complexion of her people, desires this paleness. She desires to look not merely human, but divine, her skin a luminous white that seems to glow from within. And there is a powder that can grant her this wish. It is not the simple white clays, or the ground limestone that a lesser noble might use. Those are chalky, unconvincing. Your mistress demands the best. She demands cerussite. You open a small, beautifully carved ivory box. Inside is a powder of the most brilliant, perfect white you have ever seen. It is dense, silky, and utterly opaque. Unlike other white pigments, it has a subtle luster, a pearlescent quality that seems to catch the light. This is lead carbonate, a substance created by treating lead shavings with vinegar fumes. It is a long, difficult process, resulting in a cosmetic that is both incredibly expensive and incredibly effective. It creates a flawless, porcelain-like finish that no other substance can replicate. But this is not a gentle dusting of powder. This is the application of a mask. You take a generous amount of the cerussite and place it on the stone palette. You mix it with a little honey and fat to create a thick, white, paint-like cream. Then, using a flat wooden spatula, you begin to apply it to your mistress's face. You spread it carefully and evenly, covering her natural skin tone completely. You continue down her neck, over her collarbones, and across her chest, any part of her that will be exposed by her fine linen dress. The goal is not to enhance her natural beauty, but to erase it, replacing it with an artificial, divine visage. She now has the flawless, unchanging white skin of a living statue. As you work, you can see the immediate effect. The coverage is perfect, but you are also spreading a heavy pore-clogging paste over her skin. In the intense heat of an Egyptian afternoon, it will feel like a suffocating blanket. Beneath this perfect white mask, her skin cannot breathe. The sweat will be trapped, creating an itchy, uncomfortable film. But the discomfort is the least of the dangers. Lead is a caustic drying agent. The immediate effect of the cerussite is to dry out the skin's natural oils. With repeated daily use, the damage becomes permanent. Her skin will grow chronically dry, flaky, and prone to premature wrinkles. Even more insidiously, the lead reacts with the sulfur in the air and in her own body, creating lead sulfide, the same dark compound as galena. This will cause gray and black blemishes and patches to appear on her skin, a permanent disfigurement. This creates a truly vicious cycle. The more her natural skin is damaged by the white lead, the more blemishes and wrinkles appear. And the more blemishes she has, the more of the white lead she needs to apply to cover them up. She becomes addicted to the very substance that is destroying her, needing ever thicker layers of the white mask to hide the ugly reality it is creating underneath. And all this time, the lead is entering her body. It is being absorbed slowly through her skin, a massive dose applied over a large surface area. It is on her hands, and when she touches her mouth, she ingests it. This dose is far greater than the microscopic amounts from her kohl. It dramatically accelerates the poisoning process. The lead joins the growing reservoir in her bones, floods her nervous system, and overwhelms her organs. This deadly pursuit of pale skin was not unique to Egypt. Over 1,000 years later, the noble women of Rome would use the same substance. And thousands of years after that, the royalty of Elizabethan England, including Queen Elizabeth I herself, would use a nearly identical cosmetic called Venetian ceruse, with the same devastating results. It seems to be a timeless, recurring tragedy, the desire for a status symbol so powerful that women are willing to paint themselves with a mask of death to achieve it. In the world of Egyptian nobility, your own hair is a liability. It is hot. It is difficult to keep clean. And above all, it is a breeding ground for the relentless, ever-present plague of lice. And so, the first step to true elegance is to get rid of it. The act of shaving the head is a practical one, a ritual of cleanliness and comfort. You can imagine the feeling of relief as the heavy, bronze razor, expertly wielded, scrapes away the hair, leaving the scalp cool and bare, finally able to breathe in the oppressive heat. It is a liberation. It is also the creation of a blank canvas, a foundation upon which the true symbol of status will be built, the wig. Wigs are not merely a substitute for hair in Egypt. They are sculptures. They are declarations. They are complex works of art that communicate everything about the wearer, their social rank, their age, their gender, and even their occupation. In the workshops of the wig makers, skilled artisans spend countless hours crafting these creations. The finest, most expensive wigs, the kind your mistress wears, are made from 100% human hair, often dark and thick, bought from poor servants, or taken as tribute from conquered lands like Nubia. Cheaper wigs for lesser officials or merchants are made from a blend of human hair stretched over a base of date palm fiber or dark-colored sheep's wool. The styles are varied and rigidly defined. For daily life, a noble woman might wear a shorter bob-like wig parted in the center. But for a great festival like the one today, she requires something far more elaborate. You bring forth the formal tripartite wig. It is an immense heavy cascade of thousands of tiny precise braids separated into 3 sections, 2 falling in front of the shoulders and 1 thick mass falling down the back. Many of the braids are threaded with golden tubes or capped with faience beads which catch the light with every movement. First, a cap of woven netting is placed over your mistress's shaved head. Then comes the most unpleasant part. You take a pot of heated beeswax, a sticky, fragrant golden substance. While it is still warm and pliable, you smear it over the cap and along the hairline. It is hot and uncomfortable. Then, with the help of another servant, you lift the impossibly heavy wig and press it firmly onto her head. The beeswax acts as a powerful, unforgiving glue, cementing the wig in place. As the wax cools and hardens, it pulls at her skin a constant, tight, uncomfortable sensation she will have to endure for the rest of the day. The sheer weight of the wig is a burden in itself. It is a constant pressure on her head and neck, a source of a dull, persistent headache that is simply accepted as a part of formal attire. But the worst part is the heat. The dense mass of hair and wax creates a perfect insulating layer. There is no ventilation. The sweat from her scalp is trapped underneath with nowhere to go. Her head becomes a hot, damp, itchy environment, a perfect incubator for bacteria and fungal infections. Painful sores and rashes are a common affliction for the dedicated wig wearer. And the smell. By the end of a long, hot day, the smell beneath the wig is a foul combination of stale sweat, rancid perfumed oils, and the cloying scent of beeswax. And while she may have shaved her head to escape lice, the wig itself is not immune. The dense, dark, warm environment of the wig is a paradise for vermin. It is not uncommon for these beautiful, expensive creations to become infested themselves. And yet, she must endure it. To appear at a state festival without the proper wig would be an unthinkable social disgrace, an act of profound disrespect. It would be like appearing naked. The wig is her crown. It is the undeniable, unavoidable uniform of her class. And so she will bear its immense weight, its suffocating heat, its maddening itchiness, and its unhygienic reality. It is the heavy, heavy price of power, a burden she must carry upon her head for all to see. The transformation is not yet complete. The face may be a perfect mask, the head a regal sculpture, but the body itself must be perfected. And in the refined world of the Egyptian elite, perfection means purity. The concept of purity, or wab, is central to your entire worldview. And purity requires a constant battle against the chaotic, untamed forces of nature. Body hair is seen as one of those forces. It is a sign of your animal nature, a vestige of a wilder, more primitive state. Priests and priestesses must shave their entire bodies before they are considered pure enough to enter the sacred confines of a temple. This religious ideal has become the aesthetic standard for the nobility. To be truly civilized, truly refined, one must be as smooth and hairless as a polished stone statue. This is a war waged on multiple fronts, and you are the soldier on the front lines. One of the primary weapons in this war is a small, deceptively simple tool, a pair of bronze tweezers. They are V-shaped, hammered from a single piece of metal. Your mistress sits patiently as you begin the laborious, agonizing task. You target the stray hairs on her arms, her legs, her underarms, her bikini line. The process is painfully slow. You must isolate each individual hair, grip it firmly with the cool metal tips, and pull. There is a sharp, stinging pinch with every single pluck. The skin around the follicle becomes red, irritated, and raised in angry little bumps. Sometimes a hair breaks, leading to an inflamed, painful, ingrown hair later on. It is a meticulous torture repeated every few days, a constant low-grade pain in the service of smoothness. For larger areas, a more efficient, though equally painful method is employed. It is an ancient art, a technique that will be passed down through millennia, known in later ages as sugaring or halawa. The recipe is simple, the ingredients humble. You take a measure of sugar or honey, a little water, and the juice of a lemon. You heat the mixture over a low flame, stirring constantly until it cooks down into a thick, sticky, amber-colored paste. The consistency must be perfect, too thin, and it won't grip too thick, and it will be unworkable. It is a skill that takes years to master. You let the paste cool slightly, just enough so that it doesn't burn the skin. You then take a ball of this warm, pliable sugar wax, and using only your fingers, you press and spread it onto a section of your mistress's leg. You smooth it firmly against the skin in the opposite direction of the hair growth. Then, with a flick of the wrist that must be both incredibly fast and incredibly precise, you pull the paste away. It comes off with a sharp ripping sound, taking dozens of hairs with it, pulled directly from the root. Your mistress flinches, her breath hissing through her teeth. The pain is intense, a wave of fire across her skin. And then you move to the next section, and do it again, and again, and again. The dark side of this relentless pursuit of purity lies in the constant risk of injury and infection. The bronze tweezers are never sterilized. They are simply wiped clean. Any small nick in the skin from their sharp edges is an open door for bacteria. A pulled hair leaves behind an open follicle another potential entry point for infection in the hot, dusty climate. A painful pus-filled abscess is a common consequence. The sugaring holds its own dangers. If you, the servant, are distracted for even a moment while heating the paste, it can become too hot. Applying it can result in a serious burn, blistering your mistress's skin and leaving a permanent discolored scar. And the very process of sugaring is an invitation to infection. The same ball of wax is often used repeatedly, spread over a new patch of skin, picking up dead skin cells and bacteria, and then moved to another area, effectively spreading any potential contaminants. The pursuit of perfect cleanliness is ironically a very unhygienic process. This is a constant, unending war against nature. A war fought with tweezers and hot wax, a war of pain and patience. Every pluck, every rip, is a small victory for order over chaos, for civilization over the wild. It is the painful, bloody price that must be paid to achieve the divine, hairless, perfect body of a living God. The body is now a flawless canvas, pale smooth, and perfectly adorned. But one crucial element is missing, an element that cannot be seen, only experienced: scent. In Egypt, scent is not a mere luxury. It is a spiritual necessity. A pleasant fragrance is considered the very essence of the divine, the fragrance of the gods. When priests burn incense in the great temples, they believe the fragrant smoke is the manifestation of a god's sweat, a sacred substance that purifies a space and makes it worthy of their presence. To be perfumed, therefore, is to cloak oneself in a divine aura, to be closer to the gods. An unperfumed body is a body lacking in grace. The perfumes of Egypt are not the light alcohol-based sprays of a future world. They are rich, heavy, oil-based concoctions called unguents. The creation of these perfumes is a form of high art. The base is a pure neutral fat, often from a goose or an ox, which is odorless. The scent is captured through a painstaking process. Petals of the most fragrant flowers, the sacred blue lotus, jasmine, white lilies, are layered into the fat. For days or weeks, the mixture is left to sit, and the fat slowly absorbs the essential oils from the blossoms. The old flowers are removed, new ones are added, and the process is repeated until the fat is completely saturated with the fragrance. The resulting unguent is a thick, precious paste stored in sealed alabaster jars to preserve its power. Tonight, at the great festival, your mistress will wear her perfume in the most dramatic and fashionable way possible, as a perfume cone. You retrieve the cone from a cool, dark chest. It is a solid lump of rendered beef tallow, impregnated with the intoxicating, heady scent of lily. It has been shaped into a cone about the size of your hand. You take this solid waxy cone and place it directly on the crown of her heavy, ornate wig. It sits there, a strange pointed hat of solid perfume. As the evening begins, the effect is magnificent. As your mistress moves and socializes in the crowded, torchlit hall of the temple, the heat from her body and the surrounding air begins to work its magic. The tallow cone starts to soften, to melt. A gentle, beautiful wave of lily fragrance is released, creating a personal cloud of divine scent around her. Everyone she speaks to is enveloped in her luxurious aroma. It is a declaration of her wealth, her status, and her piety. But the magic is fleeting. As the hours wear on, the melting accelerates. The perfumed tallow, now a greasy oil, begins to run. It drips down the meticulously braided hair of the wig, turning the intricate patterns into greasy, clumpy strands. It streams down her forehead, carving paths through her white lead makeup. It trickles down her neck and onto the pristine white linen of her dress, leaving dark, oily stains that will never come out. She must maintain her regal composure, smiling and conversing, while feeling a sticky, greasy mess running down her face. Worse, the scent begins to turn. The animal fat base of the perfume, so effective at holding the fragrance, is not stable. After hours of being warm and exposed to the air, it begins to go rancid. The beautiful divine scent of lilies slowly sours, overlaid with the unmistakable unpleasant smell of old spoiled fat. This new cloying smell is now a magnet for insects. A fly drawn to the rancid grease might land on her cheek, becoming trapped in the sticky mess. By the end of the night, the perfume cone, once a symbol of divine elegance, has become a foul, greasy, rancid disaster. The wig is ruined, a sticky mess that will be nearly impossible to clean. Her skin is coated in a film of filth. The beautiful ritual has decayed into a grimy, unpleasant reality. It is the perfect metaphor for so many of her beauty practices, a magnificent, perfect facade that upon closer inspection hides a dark, messy, and decaying truth. The larger, more dramatic transformations are complete. Now you must attend to the small, intimate details, the final touches that separate the merely noble from the truly divine. You turn your attention to your mistress's hands and feet. These are not the calloused, work-worn hands of a servant. They are soft and pampered, a testament to a life devoid of manual labor. And they must be adorned accordingly. The chosen medium is not a mineral from the earth, but a gift from a plant henna. Known in your language as hemp, the henna plant is a thing of beauty and power. You have seen it growing in gardens, a tall shrub with delicate leaves and small, fragrant flowers. It is associated with life, health, and the vibrant power of blood. To stain one's hands and feet with henna is to absorb this vitality, to invoke good fortune, and to create a protective barrier against unseen evils. It is a practice for the living, lending them grace, but it is also a practice for the dead. The hands and feet of the mummified elite are often stained with henna, a final gift of vitality to aid them in the afterlife. For your mistress, it is both a cosmetic and a talisman. The process of preparing the henna is a familiar ritual. The leaves of the plant are harvested, then laid out on mats to dry under the hot Egyptian sun until they are brittle and crisp. Then they are ground into an incredibly fine greenish-brown powder. You take a measure of this powder and place it in a small ceramic bowl. Adding a little water, you stir until it forms a thick, earthy-smelling paste, the consistency of mud. But before the sacred paste can be applied, the nails themselves must be prepared. This is where the unseen danger enters the ritual. You take your mistress's hand. With a small bronze file, you begin to shape her fingernails, smoothing any rough edges. Then, using a pointed bronze tool, you meticulously clean underneath each nail, scraping away any trapped dirt. These tools are beautiful objects, perhaps with handles of carved ivory, but they are never sterilized. They are simply wiped clean after each use, a completely ineffective measure against the world of microscopic beings you do not know exists. The bronze itself can have tiny, sharp burrs, or it can be corroded, creating a rough surface that can easily scratch the delicate skin under the nail. With the nails prepared, the long, tedious process of application begins. You take the thick henna paste and apply it carefully to each of her fingernails and toenails, creating a thick, green-brown mound over each one. It is a slow, precise task. Once all the nails are coated, you might wrap her fingertips and toes in strips of clean linen. This helps to keep the paste in place, and the warmth generated by the wrappings helps the dye to penetrate more deeply into the keratin of the nail, resulting in a richer, darker, longer-lasting stain. Now your mistress must wait. For hours she is effectively helpless. She cannot use her hands to eat or drink. She cannot walk. She must be attended to completely, another subtle reinforcement of her elite status. She can do nothing but sit and wait for the plant to work its magic. After several hours the paste is dry and cracked. You gently flake it off and wash her hands and feet. The result is beautiful. Her nails are stained a deep, vibrant reddish-orange, a stark, beautiful contrast against her pale skin. They look healthy, alive, but the beauty may be a lie. If during the filing and cleaning the bronze tool created a tiny invisible cut or abrasion in the skin around the nail, an open door has been created. And the henna paste itself, by creating a warm, moist environment trapped under the linen wrappings, has created the perfect nursery for an invasion. Fungal spores, ever present in the air and on the skin, can be trapped in that tiny wound. The invasion is slow. Weeks later, your mistress might notice a small yellowish discoloration at the edge of one of her beautifully stained nails. She will ignore it, but it will grow. The fungus thriving in the nail bed will spread. The nail will become thick, distorted, and brittle, crumbling at the edges. It may turn a sickly yellow or even black. It will become painful to the touch. There is no cure for this. The physicians have no remedy for a sickness of the nail itself. The beautiful orange stain of the henna will now be a mask for an ugly, decaying infection that will never go away. The pursuit of perfect, vital-looking nails has ironically created the perfect conditions for their slow, chronic, and incurable decay. The final aspect of the polished image is a sweet, pleasant breath, a mouth free from the odors of decay. The concept of oral hygiene is not foreign. It is a point of concern. You have prepared for your mistress a concoction to be chewed after her meal, pellets of frankincense and myrrh, mixed with cinnamon and honey. They are aromatic and pleasant, and they will mask any unpleasantness. But they are only a mask. They are a fragrant, beautiful lie that conceals a truly horrifying reality, the catastrophic state of Egyptian teeth. The primary tool for cleaning the teeth is a chewing stick, a practice common throughout the ancient world. A thin branch from a tree, like the Salvador persica, is taken, and one end is chewed until the wood fibers separate and fray, creating a primitive, natural brush. You might use this to rub at your own teeth. Your mistress might use one as well. It is a sensible, logical practice. But it is like bringing a single broom to hold back a relentless sandstorm. The enemy of Egyptian teeth is not a lack of cleaning. It is the very food that gives them life. The problem lies in the bread. Bread is the staff of life, the core of every single meal for every single person, from the pharaoh in his palace to the lowest farmer in his mud brick hut. And every single loaf is filled with sand. This is not an accident. It is an unavoidable consequence of the technology of the time. The wheat and barley are harvested from the fields, but the grain must be threshed and winnowed, processes that introduce fine particles of sand and dust. Then comes the grinding. The grain is placed on a large, flat stone quern, and a smaller loaf-shaped stone is pushed back and forth over it, grinding the grain into flour. The friction of stone on stone inevitably grinds tiny particles of the rock itself into the flour. No amount of sifting can remove all of this abrasive grit. So every bite of bread, every meal, every single day of an Egyptian's life is an act of chewing on sandpaper. The damage is slow, cumulative, and utterly catastrophic. You can see the beginning of it in your mistress, who is still young. The surfaces of her molar teeth are no longer peaked and ridged. They are becoming unnervingly flat. This is the first stage, dental attrition. The relentless grit is literally grinding away the hard, protective outer layer of the teeth, the enamel. As the years pass, this process will accelerate. Once the enamel is gone, the softer layer beneath the dentin is exposed. This will cause her pain and sensitivity. Eventually, the teeth will be worn down so far that the living core, the pulp cavity containing the nerves and blood vessels, becomes exposed to the mouth. This is the beginning of a living nightmare. The pain will be constant, excruciating, a throbbing agony that will never leave her. Eating will be torture. But the pain is not the end. With the nerve exposed, the mouth's vast population of bacteria now has a direct route into the heart of the tooth. An infection will take hold, killing the nerve and rotting the tooth from the inside out. This infection will spread down the root and into the jawbone, creating a massive pus-filled abscess. Her face will swell, she will have a fever, and the pain will become unbearable. The royal physicians have remedies for this, magical spells against the toothworm they believe causes the decay, or prescriptions for pain-killing herbs like opium. But they cannot stop the infection. This is not a rare occurrence. It is the norm. The archaeological evidence is undeniable. The jaws of mummies from royals to commoners tell the same horrifying story: teeth worn down to flat stubs, jawbones riddled with the smooth-walled holes left by enormous abscesses. The serene, perfect smiles seen in Egyptian statues and paintings are a complete fabrication, an artist's ideal. The reality for nearly every person in this land was a lifetime of escalating dental pain, chronic infection, and for some, a painful death when an abscessed tooth led to a systemic infection of the blood. The fragrant herbs your mistress chews are a pitifully small defense against the gritty, sandy truth of the bread she eats every day. Let us look again at the tool in your hand, the kohl applicator. It is a simple object, a slender stick, perhaps no longer than your finger. But it is an object of profound importance and intimacy. It is not a disposable thing, a piece of wood to be used once and thrown away. It is a permanent personal possession, an heirloom sometimes passed down from mother to daughter. It is a part of the daily ritual of becoming. Yours might be made of simple polished wood, worn smooth with use. But your mistress's, hers is a work of art. It is carved from a single piece of hippopotamus ivory, creamy white and cool to the touch, its end shaped into a delicate rounded bud for a smooth application. It is a thing of value, a small piece of luxury. And it is lethally dangerous. Not because of the material it is made from, but because of the world it inhabits, a world you cannot see. Your understanding of cleanliness is based on what is visible. If the stick appears clean, if there's no visible dirt or grime on it, then it is clean. The concept of a living world of creatures too small for the eye to see, of bacteria, of viruses, is a form of magic that has not yet been imagined. You wipe the ivory stick with a clean linen cloth after each use, and to you, that is enough. The tool is pure again, ready for tomorrow's ritual. This fundamental lack of understanding about microbiology turns this beautiful, intimate object into a vector for disease. Think of the social nature of a noble household. A visiting cousin, a sister, a favored friend, they might admire your mistress's cosmetics. In a gesture of hospitality, your mistress might offer them a touch of her kohl. The visitor uses the same ivory applicator, dips it into the same stone pot, and applies it to her eye. But the visitor is carrying the beginnings of an eye infection, what you might call a red eye. Microscopic bacteria from her eye are now on the applicator and have been transferred into the kohl pot. The next day, when you use the applicator on your mistress, you are transferring that same bacteria directly into her eye. This is how sickness spreads through the household, a silent, invisible contagion passed along on the tip of a beautiful tool. But the true scourge, the great plague of the Egyptian eye, is a disease you know all too well, though you do not know its name or its cause. You know it only by its horrifying results. The disease is trachoma. It is a bacterial infection caused by a creature called Chlamydia trachomatis. It thrives in hot, dry, dusty climates where flies are abundant. It is passed from person to person, through touch, through hands, through shared pieces of cloth, and most efficiently, of all, through shared eye makeup applicators. The kohl stick and pot are a perfect transmission system. The disease begins innocently enough as a simple inflammation. The eye becomes red, watery, and itchy. You treat it with prescribed remedies, perhaps even with more kohl, believing you are fighting the sickness. But the bacteria have begun their real work on the inside of the eyelid. They cause a chronic, violent inflammation that over years turns the smooth, soft inner surface of the eyelid into a rough, scarred landscape, like sandpaper. This scarring contracts and deforms the eyelid, causing it to turn inwards. This stage of the disease is called trichiasis, and it is the beginning of a life of unimaginable torture. With the eyelid now turned inward, your mistress's own eyelashes, once a symbol of her beauty, become instruments of torment. With every blink, every flutter of her eyes, her lashes scrape across the delicate, sensitive surface of her cornea. Imagine the feeling. It is not a gentle tickle. It is the feeling of having sand, of having sharp needles dragged across your eyeball, not just once, but with every single blink thousands of times a day. It is a constant, maddening, inescapable pain. At night she will try to sleep, but even in sleep her eyes move and the scraping continues. There is no relief. This constant abrasion, this relentless scraping, slowly but surely destroys the cornea. The clear window of the eye becomes a cloudy, scarred mess. Her vision blurs, the world dissolves into a murky fog, and then one day the light goes out completely. She is blind. This is the ultimate cruel irony of the kohl applicator. The kohl itself was a magical shield meant to protect the eye. The applicator was the wand used to paint on this magical protection. But in truth, the unsterilized tool passed from person to person, shared in a gesture of friendship or hospitality, was the very instrument that delivered the plague. It was a beautiful, elegant key that unlocked a door to a lifetime of pain and finally to a world of absolute and permanent darkness. Let us now consider the vessels themselves. The pots, jars, and containers that hold these precious cosmetics are objects of breathtaking beauty and craftsmanship. They are not mere containers. They are art. They are carved from luminous calcite, which future generations will mistakenly call alabaster, its milky white stone, streaked with gentle veins of honey-colored gold. They are shaped from heavy, dark diorite, polished to a mirror shine. They are cut from the ivory tusks of elephants or molded from vibrant, glassy, blue faience, the color of the lotus pools of heaven. These objects are designed to be permanent, to last for eternity. They are so valued that they will be placed in your mistress's tomb to serve her in the afterlife. They are cool to the touch, their surfaces smooth and perfect. They feel pure, they feel clean. This feeling of purity is a dangerous illusion. You understand spoilage. You know that a leg of lamb left in the sun will rot. You know that a bowl of milk will curdle. You know that fruit will be consumed by mold. You understand visible decay. But the idea that a dry powder or a fatty paste stored within a sealed, impervious stone jar could spoil in a way that is invisible to the eye is a completely foreign concept. The stone is eternal. The contents are protected. How could danger possibly grow inside such a perfect, beautiful vessel? The danger begins the very first time the jar is used. When you dip the applicator into the pot of red ochre paste, you introduce life into the sterile environment. The stick carries bacteria from your mistress's skin and mouth. It carries dust from the air. Each time it is dipped, another small deposit is made. The paste itself, a mixture of fat and clay, is an incredibly rich source of nutrients. The animal fat provides the perfect food for bacteria to feast upon. The jar stored in the warm, dark chamber, free from the purifying light of the sun, becomes a perfect incubator. Let us imagine the life cycle of a single pot of lip stain. You mix a fresh batch this morning. It is pure. For the first week, all is well. But with each daily application, a small colony of bacteria, perhaps staphylococcus from the skin, is introduced. They begin to multiply, feeding on the rich goose fat. After 2 weeks, the colony is thriving. The paste does not look different. It does not smell different. But it is now teeming with millions of invisible organisms. Now when you apply the paste to your mistress's lips, you are not applying a cosmetic. You are applying a bacterial poultice. The result is not beauty, but disfigurement. She may develop the painful red acne-like sores around her mouth. She could suffer from boils, angry pus-filled infections that are agonizingly painful and leave deep scars. A small cut on her lip could become seriously infected, leading to a dangerous condition you know as the swelling sickness, or cellulitis. The very cosmetic meant to create the illusion of perfect health is now the direct cause of ugly, painful infections. The same is true for the pot of kohl. While the lead compounds have some mild antibacterial properties, they are not powerful enough to create a truly sterile environment. A pot of kohl that has been used for months can become a reservoir of infectious bacteria. It can be the source of recurring eye infections, painful styes, or chronic conjunctivitis that leaves the eyes perpetually red and weeping. Each morning's application is a gamble, a game of chance played with her vision. Will the kohl protect her today, or will it be the source of an infection that could plague her for weeks? This is the final paradox. These exquisite vessels were created to hold the secrets of eternal beauty. They are so precious they will be buried with kings and queens to ensure they look their best in the afterlife. But during life, these same beautiful eternal jars became breeding grounds for transient, dangerous life. They were perfect miniature tombs that, instead of preserving the body, cultivated the very germs that could sicken and disfigure it. They were houses of eternity filled with the seeds of decay. There is an enemy more relentless than the desert sun, more insidious than any foreign invader. It is the enemy of time itself. Your mistress, like all the nobility, is engaged in a deep spiritual war against the visible signs of aging. In the Egyptian worldview, to age is to decay, and decay is a victory for Isfet, the serpent of chaos who seeks to unravel the divine order Ma'at. Wrinkles, sagging skin, gray hairs, these are not seen as marks of wisdom, but as the dreaded footprints of chaos creeping across the sacred vessel of the body. To fight aging is to fight for cosmic order. It is a desperate daily battle to preserve the eternal youthfulness that is the right of the gods, and by extension, the elite who serve them. The weapons in this war are not found in an armory, but in the scrolls of the medical papyri. You have seen these precious documents, like the great Ebers papyrus held in the House of Life at the temple. They are the collected wisdom of generations of physicians, a blend of practical observation, magical incantations, and what can only be described as pure, desperate hope. When your mistress notices a new fine line spreading from the corner of her eye, she does not sigh with resignation. She consults these texts. She orders you to prepare a remedy. And the remedies are challenging. Today, the prescription is for a face mask. You are instructed to prepare a mixture of honey-powdered alabaster and milk from a woman who has successfully borne a male child. The logic is one of sympathetic magic. The purity of the milk and the eternal nature of the stone will surely be transferred to her skin. But the primary ingredient, the one believed to hold the most potent magic, is the most repulsive: crocodile dung. You must go down to the riverbank, to a place where the great reptiles haul themselves out of the water to bask in the sun. You must collect the animal's droppings. The crocodile is a creature of immense power, a symbol of the pharaoh himself, a being that embodies the regenerative, dangerous power of the Nile. Surely the physicians reason its waste must contain some of this incredible vitality. You carry the foul-smelling substance back to the house. You dry it in the sun, then pound it into a fine grayish powder. The stench is nauseating. You mix it with the other ingredients to form a thick, gritty, foul-smelling paste. Your mistress lies back her eyes, closed, a picture of determined serenity. You take the paste and spread it over her face, avoiding her beautifully made-up eyes. The feeling of the gritty, dung-filled mask on her skin must be unpleasant. The smell is overpowering. She must lie there for an hour or more, enduring the stench, enduring the discomfort, all in the desperate hope that this disgusting ritual will smooth away a single wrinkle. She is placing her faith in the power of one of the world's most fearsome predators. The reality is that this remedy is not just ineffective. It is incredibly dangerous. The mask will do nothing to her wrinkles. The honey might offer some mild antibacterial properties, but they are no match for what truly lurks within the primary ingredient. The dung of a reptile is a teeming cesspool of pathogens. It is a potent source of bacteria like Salmonella, which, if it enters her system through a small cut or by accidental ingestion, can cause a violent sickness of the gut. It is filled with the eggs of parasitic worms, which could lead to a chronic, debilitating infestation. Every time she undergoes this beautifying ritual, she is playing a game of chance with her health, inviting an army of microscopic invaders onto her face in the hope of erasing a single line. Other anti-aging remedies are less repulsive, but no less questionable. She anoints her skin daily with various animal fats, the rendered fat of a goose, an ox, or even, if it can be acquired, a hippopotamus. While these fats provide a temporary moisturizing effect, making the skin feel softer for a few hours, they do nothing to halt the aging process. And if they are not rendered and stored with perfect care, they will quickly turn rancid, becoming a breeding ground for bacteria that can cause skin infections. She places her faith in these bizarre prescriptions because the alternative, accepting the natural course of aging, is to admit defeat at the hands of chaos. She would rather risk disease and infection from the foulest of ingredients than surrender to the indignity of a wrinkle. It is a war she can never win, fought with weapons that are both useless and treacherous. There are other marks on your mistress's body hidden from public view beneath her fine linen robes. These are not marks of aging or decay. They are permanent, deliberate marks of magic and devotion, tattoos. But you must banish the modern idea of a tattoo from your mind. These are not pictures of ships or hearts chosen for personal expression. In the New Kingdom, these marks are found almost exclusively on the bodies of women, and they are not for decoration. They are amulets, prayers, and protective spells made flesh. Your mistress has several. On her thighs, there are patterns of dots and lines, a geometric web that is believed to stretch and protect her during the trials of pregnancy and childbirth. But the most important tattoo is on her lower abdomen. It is the grotesque yet reassuring face of the god Bees. You know him well. He is a household god, a strange dwarf-like deity with a lion's mane sticking out his tongue and often brandishing a knife. He is a fearsome, ugly figure, but he is not a demon. He is a protector, a guardian of the family, and most importantly, the divine bouncer, who watches over women during labor, using his terrifying appearance to frighten away evil spirits that might try to harm the mother or the child. To have his image permanently etched onto your belly is to have his magical protection with you always. But the process of receiving this sacred protection is a brutal, dangerous ordeal. It is not performed in a temple by a priest, but often by an older woman who specializes in this secret female-centric art. The tools are not fine instruments. The tattooist uses a set of 3 or perhaps 7 bronze needles of varying sizes tightly bound to a wooden handle. Bronze, a metal that corrodes and pits, is impossible to properly sterilize. The ink is the simplest, most basic pigment imaginable, black soot scraped from the inside of a cooking pot, or an oil lamp mixed with a little water or oil to form a gritty paste. The ritual itself is a trial by pain. Your mistress would lie on a mat held down by other women while the tattooist went to work. There is no anesthetic, only the will to endure. The tattooist dips the bundle of bronze needles into the soot paste and then begins to rhythmically, relentlessly poke the design into the skin. It is not a smooth line, but a series of endless painful pricks. Each puncture of the needles drives the unsterile, soot-based pigment deep into the dermis. The skin bleeds. The pain is intense, but she must endure it. The pain is part of the magic, a sacrifice to earn the god's favor. The immediate aftermath is predictable. The newly tattooed area becomes a swollen, angry red welt. It is intensely painful to the touch for days. A localized infection is almost a certainty. The area will likely fester, weeping a mixture of blood ink and pus as her body tries to fight off the foreign invaders introduced by the dirty needles. If she is lucky, her immune system will eventually win the battle. The infection will subside, and the skin will heal, leaving behind a blurred, blue-black permanent image of the god's face on her skin. She has survived. She is protected. But if she is unlucky, the bacteria driven deep into her flesh by the bronze needles, virulent strains like Staphylococcus or Streptococcus, might find their way into her bloodstream. This is the beginning of a terrifying and often fatal condition, septicemia. Blood poisoning. The onset is rapid. She would be struck by a raging fever, her body racked with violent, uncontrollable chills. Her breathing would become rapid and shallow. She would become confused, delirious, her mind lost in a fever dream. Her body, overwhelmed by the systemic infection, would begin to shut down. Her organs would fail. Within days, she could be dead. This is the terrifying gamble at the heart of the sacred tattoo. In an attempt to secure a magical guardian against the potential dangers of childbirth, she must risk a very real and immediate death from infection. She is inviting a magical protector into her body by literally opening the door to a microscopic army of killers. It is a desperate wager, born of the belief that the fear of a demon you cannot see is far greater than the fear of the dirty needle you can. The visual transformation is complete. Your mistress is a living statue, a perfect image of divine nobility. But there is one final invisible element to perfect her breath. In the close, intimate social world of the Egyptian elite, where conversations happen face-to-face in crowded banquet halls, the quality of one's breath is of paramount importance. A sweet, fragrant breath is a sign of youth, health, and inner purity. The gods themselves are said to have breath that smells of incense and flowers. Conversely, bad breath, which you know by the name kesef, is a sign of internal decay, a foul vapor rising from a body in a state of imbalance. It is something to be masked at all costs. And so you present your mistress with a small carved wooden box. Inside are tiny pellets carefully rolled by hand. They look like dark, polished beads. This is a special confection, a recipe likely inspired by the famous temple incense Kefi. The ingredients are a testament to the vast reach and wealth of the empire. There is frankincense and myrrh golden resins that have traveled by ship from the distant semi-mythical land of Punt, prized for their clean, sacred aroma. There is cinnamon bark brought by caravan across vast deserts, a warm, sweet spice more valuable than gold. There are crushed juniper berries and the sharp, clean scent of a chorus calamus root from the marshes. All of this is bound together with honey and ground raisins, creating a complex aromatic pellet. Your mistress places one in her mouth. As she chews, a powerful wave of fragrance is released. The sacred scent of temple incense, the warmth of exotic spices, the sweetness of honey. It is an overwhelming, pleasant perfume that effectively smothers any other odor. For a time, her breath is as sweet as a divine offering. The illusion of perfect internal health is complete. She can now speak with confidence, her words carried on a cloud of fragrance. But it is an illusion, a beautiful, expensive, and ultimately futile lie. Because the fragrant pellet is not a cure. It is merely a mask for a disaster that is unfolding inside her mouth, a catastrophe shared by nearly every person in Egypt. The battle for fresh breath cannot be won because the enemy is the very bread they eat every day. We must return to the grinding stones, the stone querns that produce the flour for the nation. We must remember the fine, abrasive grit of sand and rock that is inextricably mixed into every single loaf. This grit, this relentless abrasive, is the true source of the kesef your mistress fears. It is the agent of a slow, predictable, and horrifying process of dental destruction. You have already seen the early stages, the wearing down of the enamel, the flattening of the teeth. But the process does not stop there. Once the enamel is breached and the softer dentin is exposed, the real pain begins. But it is the next stage that leads to the odors of decay. Eventually, the teeth are worn down to their very core, exposing the pulp, the living tissue of nerves and blood vessels. This open wound in the center of the tooth is a gateway for the teeming bacteria of the mouth. An infection takes hold and the tooth begins to die from the inside out. The living pulp becomes necrotic, rotting within its small chamber. The infection spreads down the root, forming a pocket of pus in the jawbone and abscess. The smell that is produced by this process is not the simple smell of old food. It is the unmistakable foul stench of gangrene. It is the smell of dead and decaying flesh trapped within her mouth. This is the true source of the bad breath. And against this, the sweet spices of Punt and the sacred resins of the temple stand no chance. The physicians in their papyri have spells against the toothworm they believe gnaws at the jaw. They prescribe mouthwashes of herbs and honey, but they cannot stop the sand. They cannot fight the relentless abrasion. And so the beautiful pellet of Kaifi is a profound metaphor for the state of Egyptian elite health. It is an incredibly expensive, exotic, and beautiful solution applied to a problem whose cause is mundane, domestic, and completely misunderstood. They are using the treasures of the world to perfume a tomb, to throw a fragrant silken veil over the stench of gangrene. The fight is not just hopeless, it is a tragedy of ignorance, a daily ritual where the divine scent of the gods is used to mask the foul reality of a body slowly decaying from the inside out. The elaborate hours-long ritual you perform for your mistress is a universe unto itself. It is a world of precious materials, of specialized tools, of time-consuming techniques. But it is a world inhabited by only a tiny fraction of the population. For every one of your mistress, there are 1,000 other women whose lives are starkly, brutally different. Let us leave the cool, shaded villa for a moment and travel to a simple mud brick hut on the edge of a sun-baked barley field. Here another woman, the wife of a farmer, is also beginning her day. She too desires beauty. She too believes in the protective power of the gods. But her reality, her arsenal of beauty, is a world away. Let us compare their armories. Your mistress's collection is a treasure trove, a testament to the power of the empire. Her kohl is true galena, a heavy lead ore mined by slaves in the eastern desert, transported by caravan, and ground into a shimmering, potent powder. Her green eye paint is powdered malachite, a precious copper stone brought from the hostile mountains of the Sinai. Her foundation is cerussite, a brilliant white lid painstakingly manufactured through a complex chemical process. Her perfumes are extracted from thousands of blossoms. Her tools are carved from ivory and alabaster. Her beauty is built from the rarest and most expensive materials the world has to offer. Now look at the farmer's wife. She has no alabaster jars. Her entire collection sits in a single chipped pottery bowl. She too wants the protection of kohl, the iconic dark-lined eye. But she cannot afford galena. Her kohl is soot. In the morning she scrapes the inside of her cooking pot, collecting the greasy black carbon residue. Or perhaps she uses the soot from the bottom of her flickering oil lamp. She mixes it with a little water, or, if she can spare it, a drop of castor oil. It is black, yes, but it is a dull, matte black. It is gritty. It smudges easily. It lacks the shimmer, the staying power, and the perceived magical and medicinal properties of true kohl. It is a humble imitation. She desires colored eyeshadow. There is no malachite. She might crush some dried poppy petals to create a temporary faint reddish dust, or perhaps use a common dull-colored clay from the riverbank. It will fade within an hour under the hot sun. She wants color on her lips. There is no ochre paste mixed with goose fat. She might bite her lips to make them temporarily red, or stain them with the juice of a wild berry, a fleeting stain that vanishes after her first drink of water. The application itself is a study in contrasts. Your mistress's beautification is a slow, passive ritual. She sits for hours while you work on her. It is a performance of leisure. The farmer's wife has no such luxury. She squats by the doorway of her hut, the morning sun already beating down. She dips her own finger into the pot of soot paste. She looks into a small, cloudy piece of polished bronze, her only mirror. She quickly, expertly smudges the black line around her eyes. The entire process takes less than a minute. It is not about leisure. It is a practical final gesture before she heads out for a day of hard, back-breaking labor in the fields. This is the great divide. The difference is not merely one of quality. It is a fundamental difference in meaning. For the elite, beauty is about artifice. It is about using rare, expensive, and often dangerous materials to create a look that is deliberately unnatural, that distances them from the common herd and aligns them with the eternal, unchanging perfection of the gods. For the commoner, beauty is about imitation. It is about using the simplest, most readily available materials to mimic the appearance of the powerful, to borrow a fraction of their status to pray for the same level of divine protection. The noblewoman's face is a statement of power. The farmer's wife's face is an expression of hope. It is a stark reminder that in this world, status, power, and even your connection to the gods is a thing that is literally painted on your face each morning. Let us now step back and look at the entire picture. We have seen the individual threats, the lead, the copper, the bacteria, the unhygienic tools. Each one is a danger in its own right. But the true catastrophe, the reason why eye disease was a constant crippling plague in ancient Egypt, is that these elements did not operate in isolation. They combined to create a perfect storm, a multi-front assault on the health of the eye where each element magnified the danger of the others. First, consider the environment itself, an adversary that never rests. The sun is the primary god Ra, but he is a harsh, unforgiving deity. His light is brilliant, a blinding glare that reflects off the white desert sand and the shimmering surface of the Nile. This creates a constant strain, forcing people to squint, leading to chronic irritation. And then there is the wind, the khamsin that blows in from the desert, carrying with it a fine abrasive dust that gets into everything. It is a relentless microscopic sandpaper, scratching at the delicate surface of the cornea, creating tiny wounds and constant inflammation. And where there is the life-giving water of the Nile, there are flies. Not just a few, but swarms of them breeding in the fertile damp earth, buzzing around every home, every marketplace, every temple. They are drawn to the moisture of human eyes, a desperate source of liquid in a dry land, and they are perfect vectors for disease, carrying bacteria on their tiny legs from one person to another with terrifying efficiency. This hostile environment is the stage. Now let us place our beauty rituals onto that stage. We begin with the kohl itself. The lead-based powder, as we have seen, is a slow poison to the body, but it also acts as a physical irritant to the eye. The heavy metallic particles contribute to the general feeling of grittiness, encouraging rubbing and touching, which further spreads bacteria. Any mild antiseptic properties it may have are completely overwhelmed by the other factors. Next, we reintroduce the contaminated applicator. As we have discussed, this elegant stick of ivory or bronze is a shuttle for bacteria carrying infectious agents from a shared pot directly into the eye. It is the key that unlocks the door for the invasion. The kohl pot itself, a beautiful but unhygienic vessel, becomes the bacterial reservoir, the incubator, where the army of germs multiplies, ensuring that every single application delivers a fresh payload of pathogens. The ritual of protection becomes a ritual of reinfection. Now add the flies back into this deadly equation. The sticky, fat-based cosmetic pastes act like glue. A fly, which may have just landed on the weeping, infected eye of a sick child in the village, is now drawn to your mistress's face. It lands on her beautifully made-up eyelid, gets stuck for a moment in the greasy kohl, and deposits its cargo of chlamydia trachomatis, the bacteria that causes trachoma. The makeup meant to repel flies can perversely make the eye a more attractive and effective landing pad. You can now see the storm in its full fury. The sun and sand irritate the eye, creating microscopic wounds. A fly deposits trachoma bacteria into the eye. The contaminated kohl and applicator add even more bacteria to the mix, while simultaneously introducing lead poison into the system. The infection takes hold, causing the eye to weep. The weeping attracts more flies, which then spread the infection to others. The physicians, in their ignorance, might prescribe more kohl to treat the infection, ensuring the cycle continues. This was not a rare occurrence. This was the norm. The serene, clear-eyed visages in Egyptian art are a fantasy, a divine ideal. The reality was a population of people with sore, red-rimmed, weeping eyes. The evidence is written on the skulls of the mummies, which show pitting and changes to the bone around the eye sockets consistent with chronic, severe infections. Blindness was not a strange tragedy. It was a common end-of-life experience. The blind harpist depicted in tomb paintings was not a stereotype. He was a reflection of a society where a great many people, through this perfect storm of environment, culture, and cosmetics, eventually lost the world of light and entered a permanent silent darkness. Let us now enter the grand hall of your master's villa. The banquet is at its peak. The air is thick with the smell of roasting meats, sweet figs, and spiced wine. The music of a harp and a lute weaves through the loud, confident chatter of the assembled guests. Dozens of flickering oil lamps cast a warm, dancing glow over the scene, illuminating the colorful wall paintings and the fine, white linen robes of the elite. And at the center of it all sits your mistress, a picture of perfect regal composure. She is the embodiment of wealth and status, and the ultimate symbol of her status sits atop her head, the perfume cone. It is a curious sight. A solid cone the size of a large pear, made of perfumed animal fat or beeswax, has been placed directly onto her elaborate wig. All the other high-status guests, men and women, wear one as well. There is a silent competition in the room. A larger cone, or one releasing the scent of rare imported myrrh, speaks of greater wealth than a smaller cone scented with common lily. It is a visible olfactory declaration of one's place in the social hierarchy. For the first hour, the effect is intoxicating, and exactly as intended. The warmth of the crowded room and the heat rising from your mistress's own body begin to soften the cone. It doesn't melt quickly, but releases its fragrance in a slow, controlled manner. A gentle, divine cloud of perfume surrounds her, a personal atmosphere of luxury. It is a sign of her purity, her connection to the gods. She is a fragrant flower in a garden of power, but the laws of physics are indifferent to status. As the evening wears on and the heat in the hall intensifies, the turning point arrives. The slow release becomes a steady melt. A single droplet of perfume grease detaches from the bottom of the cone. It traces a slow, oily path down the side of her face, carving a clear channel through her pristine, white lead makeup. She pretends not to notice. Another droplet follows this one, running down a lock of her intricately braided wig. Soon, a small, unstoppable cascade of grease is running down her head and neck. It soaks into the fine hair of the wig, turning the carefully sculpted braids into greasy, clumpy ropes. It drips onto the collar of her white linen dress, leaving dark, translucent stains that will never wash out. She must sit there, smiling and engaging in witty conversation, all while feeling a sticky, greasy mess trickling down her skin. The indignity is not just physical, it is olfactory. The beautiful, complex fragrance begins to change. The delicate floral notes start to fade, and a new, stronger smell begins to emerge. The base of the cone, the rendered animal tallow, is an organic substance, and when it is held at body temperature for several hours, it begins to do what all fat does: it goes rancid. The divine scent is now overlaid with a cloying, sour smell of spoiled grease. The perfume is decaying live on her head. This new foul odor is a powerful attractant. The flies and gnats that buzz around the oil lamps are drawn to it. A fly lands on her forehead, its legs wriggling as it becomes trapped in the sticky, sweet, rancid paste. Your mistress must continue her conversation, her face a mask of serene composure, while a fly is slowly dying in the cosmetic goo on her face. The perfume cone, once a symbol of divine aroma, has become a piece of living fly paper. When she finally returns to her chambers late at night, the ritual is complete, and so is the disaster. The wig is a ruin, a heavy, reeking helmet of spoiled fat dead insects and matted hair. It must be thrown away. Her own shaved head beneath is caked in a layer of sweat and sticky wax. Her face, neck, and the shoulders of her expensive dress are irrevocably stained. The glorious symbol of her status at the beginning of the evening has decayed into a prison of filth by the end. It is a stark, visceral metaphor for her entire beauty regimen. A magnificent, dazzling facade that under the heat of reality melts away to reveal a sticky, rancid, and decaying mess underneath. The body has been cleansed, depilated, and perfumed. But there is another level of perfection to be attained. The ideal Egyptian form, as seen in the flawless polished statues of the gods and pharaohs, is one of supernatural smoothness. The skin must not just be clean, it must be polished. It must be free from any roughness, any imperfection, any sign of the texture of mortal flesh. It must gleam like a surface of polished stone. And to achieve this divine finish, a ritual of abrasion is required. It is the process you know as exfoliation. The primary tools for this ritual are gifts from the earth, but they are harsh gifts. The most common is sand. Not the soft, silty mud of the riverbank, but the fine, sharp-edged desert sand, collected and dried. For a more luxurious and spiritually significant treatment, there is salt, brought in cakes from the great salt marshes of the Delta or the shores of the Mediterranean Sea. Salt is a sacred substance. It is used in temple purification rituals. It is the primary ingredient in natron, the salt mixture used to dry out the bodies of the dead for mummification, preserving them for eternity. To use salt to scour the skin is therefore seen as a powerful act of purification, a way to ritually preserve the living body. For the absolute highest elite, a powder of ground alabaster, a byproduct from the workshops of the statue carvers, might be used literally polishing the skin with the same material used for images of the gods. The process is not a gentle spa treatment. It is a vigorous full-body scouring. You, the servant, prepare a paste by mixing the abrasive, the sand, or the salt, with a measure of thick, viscous castor oil. This creates a gritty, abrasive slurry. Your mistress lies upon a low couch. You take a handful of this coarse paste and begin to scrub her skin. You work systematically her arms, her legs, her back, her torso. The sound is a harsh, scratching rasp. The feeling for your mistress is an intense, burning friction. This is not about gentle circles. It is about applying firm pressure, about physically scouring away the outermost layer of dead skin cells. But you are doing far more than that. On a microscopic level, a level you cannot see or comprehend, you are perpetrating a violent assault on her body's most important defense. The sharp, crystalline edges of the salt and sand are not smoothly polishing anything. They are acting like tiny blades, creating thousands upon thousands of microscopic cuts, tears and abrasions across the entire surface of her epidermis. Her skin's natural barrier, the delicate layer that keeps moisture in and pathogens out, is being physically shredded. You are in effect creating a single, body-wide wound. The immediate result is skin that is red raw and inflamed. It feels sensitive and tender to the touch, but the long-term danger is far greater. Each of those microscopic tears is now an open gateway. In the unhygienic environment of the ancient world, this is a catastrophic vulnerability. When you rinse the abrasive paste from her body, you might use water drawn from a canal water that could be teeming with parasites like the schistosome worm, which can now enter her bloodstream directly through these tiny cuts. After the rinsing, you will apply a heavy layer of moisturizing oil or fat to soothe the raw, inflamed skin. But this thick, occlusive layer can trap bacteria against the wounded surface. With thousands of entry points available, bacteria from the water, the air, or your own hands can now easily cause infections. The result could be a widespread rash of painful, pus-filled pustules or follicles. The very ritual designed to create perfectly smooth, flawless skin has in fact created the perfect conditions for it to become a landscape of infected sores. There is a terrible, vicious cycle at the heart of this practice. The abrasive scrubbing damages the skin. The skin becomes inflamed and infected. To treat this, more ointments are applied, and to get rid of the resulting blemishes and rough patches, the only solution they know is to scrub the skin even more vigorously the next time. It is a cycle of damage and desperation. They believe they are purifying the body, polishing it into a perfect sealed vessel worthy of a divine spirit. But the truth is the precise opposite. They are violently breaking the seal, shattering their own armor, and leaving the body raw, weeping, and defenseless against the chaos of the unseen world. It is a ritual of purification that in reality invites contamination and disease. After the harsh abrasion of exfoliation, or simply after the daily bath, one ritual is absolutely essential for survival in the Egyptian climate: the anointing of the body with oil. The dry desert air and the relentless baking sun are a constant threat to the skin. Without a protective layer of moisture, the skin would quickly become dry, cracked, painful, and aged. Oiling the body is not a luxury. It is a fundamental act of daily hygiene, as necessary as drinking water. Every person in Egypt, from the pharaoh to the stonecutter, anoints their skin with some form of oil. But not all oils are created equal. There is a strict unspoken hierarchy, a ladder of status expressed in the very substance you use to moisturize your skin. At the bottom of this ladder are the oils of the common people. Castor oil is the most widespread, extracted from the humble castor bean. It is a thick, viscous, effective moisturizer, but it has a distinctive, somewhat unpleasant smell. It is the oil of the laborer, the farmer. It is purely functional. Climbing the ladder, we find the oils of the elite. The most prized of all is moringa oil, which you know by the name bak. Extracted from the seeds of the moringa tree, it is a light, fine oil that is absorbed easily into the skin, leaving a silky finish without a heavy, greasy feeling. Crucially, it has almost no natural scent, making it the perfect, pristine base for the expensive and complex perfumes we have already discussed. Another luxury oil is balanos, extracted from the nuts of the Balanites aegyptiaceae tree, sometimes called the Egyptian balm. It too is a light, fine oil, often imported from the south, from the conquered lands of Nubia, its exotic origin adding to its prestige. To be anointed with moringa or balanos oil is to wear a cloak of liquid wealth. But this world of luxury oils is filled with secrets and deception. The first secret is rancidity. The process of extracting and storing oil in the ancient world was imperfect. Exposure to air and heat, a constant in Egypt, causes any oil to oxidize. An alabaster jar of precious moringa oil, opened and used daily, might be fresh and pure for the first few weeks. But slowly, it will begin to turn. The smell will change, acquiring a sour, sharp, unpleasant note. Using this rancid oil is not just an unpleasant olfactory experience. It can irritate the skin, causing rashes and clogged pores. The beautiful, expensive oil has become a foul, skin-damaging substance. The second, more sinister secret is adulteration. Because moringa oil was so valuable, the temptation for fraud was enormous. An unscrupulous merchant, seeking to increase his profits, might dilute the precious oil with a cheaper one. He could mix the expensive moringa with a large portion of common cheap castor oil. The mixture would still be sold at the full price of pure moringa. When you anoint your mistress, you might notice the oil feels thicker today, a little stickier, that its smell is not as clean as it should be. Is it because the oil is turning rancid? Or is it because your master has been swindled at the market? You have no way of knowing. She is being coated in a lie. The final secret is the world of magical additives. The medical papyri are filled with prescriptions for special oils, meant to achieve specific results. An oil to make the limbs supple might be mixed with the rendered fat of a snake. An oil to impart great strength might be mixed with the fat of a hippopotamus. An oil to make one more agile might be mixed with the fat of a cat. These were not seen as disgusting additions, but as powerful acts of sympathetic magic. But the reality is that you are rubbing your mistress's body with unhygienic, improperly rendered animal grease, a potential source of bacteria and disease. And so the simple, essential act of oiling the body is fraught with hidden dangers. The daily anointing is a moment of uncertainty, the oil that is meant to protect and preserve the skin, to keep it youthful and smooth, could in fact be rancid, fraudulent, or magically contaminated. The final layer of beauty and protection is a veil of secrets, a slick, glistening film of potential decay. To understand the true depth of this daily ritual, we must understand the Egyptian mind. We must look past our modern lens of vanity and see makeup for what it truly was: not a cosmetic, but a form of magical armor. Their entire universe was defined by a single, eternal conflict, the struggle between Ma'at and Isfet. Ma'at was the divine order, the principle of truth, balance, justice, and harmony. It was the predictable flooding of the Nile, the righteous rule of the pharaoh, the healthy body, the symmetrical temple. It was the universe working as it should. Isfet was its opposite. It was chaos, violence, injustice, and decay. It was the howling sandstorms of the desert, the invasion of foreign enemies, the wasting of a body by sickness, the asymmetry of a deformed limb. Isfet was the constant creeping threat that sought to unravel the ordered world. The human body was seen as a microcosm of this cosmic struggle. It was a personal temple, a small kingdom of flesh and bone that had to be defended, ordered, and purified daily to keep the forces of Isfet at bay. And the daily application of makeup was one of the primary ways this spiritual battle was fought. It was not about looking prettier. It was about creating a divine, ordered, and magically protected facade to present to the world. It was an act of imposing Ma'at on the mortal face. Every color, every line, every substance was chosen for its deep symbolic and magical meaning. Think of the perfect symmetrical lines of kohl you so carefully draw around your mistress's eyes. That symmetry is Ma'at itself. It is a rejection of the chaotic imperfection of a natural face. It is a conscious effort to create divine geometric order. Let us decode the colors of this magical armor. Black, the color of the kohl, was not a color of mourning or evil. It was the color of the rich, fertile black soil of the Nile Valley, the Kemet from which all life sprang. It was the color of the underworld, the realm of the great god Osiris, who died and was resurrected. Black, therefore, was the color of regeneration, rebirth, and eternal life. To outline the eyes in black was to invoke the protective powers of Osiris to ensure your own resurrection, to literally wear the promise of an afterlife on your face. It was a powerful statement of faith in the face of mortal decay. Green, the color of the malachite, was the color of new life, of sprouting plants of paradise. It was the color of the papyrus fields of Yaru, where the blessed dead lived on. But it was also, like black, the color of Osiris, who was often depicted with green skin to symbolize his own rebirth. And it was the color of Hathor, the lady of malachite, the goddess of joy. To wear green was to carry a piece of paradise with you, to align yourself with the great cycle of death and rebirth, and to invoke the joyful protection of the goddess. Red, the color of the ochre, was the most complex and dangerous of all. It was the color of the hostile desert, the realm of the chaotic god Set. It was the color of violence and destruction. But it was also the color of blood, the very substance of life. It was the color of vitality, of energy, of the life-giving sun. To apply red to the lips was therefore a daring act of magic. It was to harness the dual nature of power itself, both creative and destructive, and to display it with confidence. It was a sign that the wearer was not afraid to wield the most dangerous of energies. The entire process was a spell. The cosmetic palette on which you mix the colors was a small personal altar. The ivory applicator was a magic wand. The words you might whisper while applying the makeup could be actual prayers or incantations, blessings for the day ahead. You are not just a servant applying makeup. You are a ritual practitioner, an acolyte helping your priestess mistress don her sacred armor before she steps out to face the chaotic world. And here lies the most profound and tragic irony of all. The very materials chosen for this spiritual armor, chosen for their powerful magical symbolism and their connection to eternity, were the secret agents of Isfet. The lead of the kohl, a heavy, permanent, eternal metal, was perfect for symbolizing the unchanging gods, but it brought the chaos of neurological decay. The copper of the malachite, a vibrant living color, was perfect for symbolizing rebirth, but it brought the chaos of lung disease. In their attempt to create a perfect ordered divine facade, they were physically poisoning the body beneath. The act of imposing mayat on the skin was the very act that invited the deepest forces of Isfet into the blood, the bones, and the brain. The magic was real to them. But the poison we now know was real to us. Until now, our story has centered on the noble woman, the wearer of this dazzling and dangerous beauty. We have felt her skin, her pain, her ambition. But for this ritual to exist, there must be another person in the room. Now let us turn our gaze to you. For the remainder of this journey, you are the servant, the artist, the silent, invisible enabler of this entire elaborate performance. Your story is not written on papyrus scrolls or carved into temple walls. It is written in the permanent stains on your hands and the fine metallic dust settled deep within your lungs. Let us return to the grinding stone. The heavy pestle feels like a part of your own arm. For hours every week you perform this task. You grind the dark galena. You grind the green malachite. The motion is repetitive, grueling. A deep, permanent ache has settled into your shoulders and lower back. Blisters have formed, broken, and hardened into calluses on your palms. This is the simple physical price of your profession. Look at your hands. Even after scrubbing them with sand and natron, they are never truly clean. A faint dark stain from the lead powder is ingrained in the lines of your skin. Under your fingernails, there is a permanent greenish residue from the malachite. Your hands are a walking testament to the substances you work with. They are the mark of your trade, but they are also a visible sign of your constant intimate exposure to the poisons you so carefully prepare. But the most intimate exposure is the one you cannot see. It is the air you breathe. As you grind, a fine, heavy dust fills the small chamber. You try to tie a piece of linen over your face, but it does little to stop the microscopic particles. You inhale them with every breath. The dust coats the inside of your mouth, leaving a perpetual faint metallic taste. It travels down into your lungs, a place meant only for air. Unlike your mistress, who absorbs the poison slowly through her skin, you are taking it directly into your body's most delicate tissues. The lead and copper dust settles into the alveoli, the tiny air sacs of your lungs. Your body tries to fight back. Your lungs produce mucus to try and trap the foreign particles, leading to a chronic rattling cough that shakes your entire body, especially in the mornings. Over the years, this condition worsens. You find yourself short of breath. The simple act of climbing the stairs to your mistress's chamber leaves you winded, your chest tight and burning. The physicians call it the grinder's disease, a known ailment of miners and craftsmen like you. They have no cure. You are over the course of decades slowly suffocating. While your mistress faces the slow, insidious creep of chronic poisoning, you are also at a higher risk of acute poisoning. A moment of carelessness, a larger than usual cloud of dust inhaled when a chunk of ore shatters unexpectedly, could deliver a massive dose of lead or copper directly into your system. You could be struck down with a sudden violent sickness fever, vomiting, debilitating abdominal pain. It would likely be diagnosed as a simple fever, or a curse from a rival, or a punishment from the gods. No one would connect it to the beautiful shimmering dust you work with every day. And what is the emotional burden of this knowledge? Do you feel resentment as you labor in pain to create a beauty you will never wear? Or do you feel a surge of pride in your unique, dangerous skill? Perhaps it is a complex mixture of both. You are the keeper of the secrets. You know the foul smell of the crocodile dung mask. You know the truth of the sticky, rancid perfume cone. You know the pain and effort that lie behind the serene, perfect mask your mistress presents to the world. You are the guardian of the ugly truth behind the beauty. You have no choice, of course. This is your lot, your assigned place in the great ordered structure of society. To refuse this work is unthinkable. So you continue. You grind, you mix, you paint. You are a vital yet invisible part of this process. And in this small, quiet room, there are two victims of this relentless pursuit of perfection. Your mistress, slowly being poisoned by the very symbols of her power and status. And you, the servant, your body being physically eroded by the labor required to create them. One is a quiet, elegant poisoning of the blood. The other is a gritty, painful, dusty decay of the lungs. Both of you, in your own way, are being sacrificed on the same altar of beauty. In your world, there is no clear line that divides a cosmetic from a medicine, a beauty treatment from a doctor's prescription. They are one and the same. The beautification of the body and the healing of the body both fall under the authority of the same group of highly respected craftsmen, the physicians, the WNW. Their knowledge is not common. It is a closely guarded trove of secrets recorded on precious papyrus scrolls and stored in the great temple libraries, the houses of life. The most revered of these texts is the document you know as the Ebers Papyrus, a vast scroll over 20 meters long, containing hundreds of remedies, recipes, and magical spells for everything from a crocodile bite to a troubled heart. When your mistress seeks to combat a sign of aging, she is not indulging in vanity. She is seeking medical treatment from the highest authority in the land. And central to this entire system of medicine is a concept that is foreign to the modern mind, the inseparable link between a physical remedy and a magical spell. The Egyptian physician did not distinguish between medicine, which you call pekret, and magic, which you call heka. They were two sides of the same coin. A remedy was not merely a substance to be applied or ingested, it was a ritual. The potion was often accompanied by a specific incantation that had to be chanted to activate its power to direct its healing force against the demons of sickness. Let us browse the cosmetic section of this medical Bible. The prescriptions are a testament to a worldview steeped in sympathetic magic. There is a famous remedy to combat baldness, a condition greatly feared as a sign of lost vitality. The prescription calls for a mixture of the fats of a hippopotamus, a crocodile, a cat, a snake, and an ibex. This is not a random collection. Each ingredient is chosen for its magical properties. The hippopotamus is a creature of immense strength and vigor. The crocodile is a symbol of terrifying power and regeneration. The snake sheds its skin and is reborn. The logic is that by applying the fats of these potent creatures to the scalp, one can absorb their specific virtues and impart them to the hair. You can imagine the process of creating this foul concoction. You, the servant, would be tasked with acquiring these rare and difficult-to-obtain fats. You would mix the greasy, strange-smelling substances together into a single ointment. The smell alone would be nauseating. Your mistress would then have this bizarre paste massaged into her scalp, all in the hope of encouraging a few more strands of hair to grow. In reality, this unhygienic mixture of rancid fats would be more likely to clog the hair follicles and cause scalp infections, making the hair loss even worse. The papyri are filled with such remedies. A formula to transform an old man into a youth involves creating a complex face mask with a long list of ingredients and applying it for 6 days. A scar can be treated with a poultice made from honey and carob pods. And for smoothing wrinkles, The texts prescribe ointments of frankincense and powdered alabaster substances, whose value lies as much in their sacred associations as in any physical property. The line is completely blurred. Is treating a wrinkle a cosmetic act or a medical one? To the Egyptian mind, it is both. A wrinkle is a physical symptom of the sickness of aging, a sickness caused by the influence of chaos. Therefore, it must be treated with both a physical substance and the magical power that substance contains. And so your mistress places her absolute faith in these prescriptions. They are not old wives' tales. They are the science of her day transcribed by learned men and sanctified by tradition. She does not know that the animal fats could be teeming with bacteria. She does not know that the magical incantations are medically useless. She knows only that she is fighting the great war against decay, using the most powerful weapons her culture has to offer. Her beauty regimen is a medical regimen, a dangerous and desperate science where the physician's sacred scroll is the authority even when its advice is to anoint oneself with a foul, useless, and potentially infectious paste. We must return one last time to the application of the kohl, for in this final precise act we find the clearest expression of the entire Egyptian worldview and the source of a deep daily anxiety. The core principle of their universe Ma'at is not just about truth and justice. It is about balance, order, and above all perfect symmetry. You see it everywhere. You see it in the perfect geometric form of the Great Pyramids. You see it in the temples, where every column on one side is perfectly mirrored by a column on the other. You see it in their art, in the rigid, balanced poses of the gods and pharaohs. To the Egyptian mind, symmetry is the visual language of the divine. It is the signature of perfection. And the noble face is a canvas upon which this divine language must be written. The goal of the cosmetic ritual is to erase the messy, natural asymmetries of a human face and replace them with the rigid, geometric perfection of a divine statue. The face must become a work of art, a living embodiment of Ma'at. The ultimate expression of this obsession is the application of the kohl around the eyes. The two eyes must become perfect mirror images of each other. This is not a casual goal. It is an absolute requirement. The lines must be exactly the same length. They must be drawn at precisely the same angle. They must have the same thickness, the same graceful curve. The slightest deviation is not just a cosmetic flaw. It is a metaphysical catastrophe. Imagine the pressure of this moment. You, the servant, hold the ivory applicator, your hand poised. The entire household may be bustling outside, but in this chamber there is a tense silence. Your mistress is perfectly still, her breathing shallow. She has placed her faith in the steadiness of your hand. You draw the first line. It is perfect, smooth, elegant, divine. Now you must replicate it exactly on the other side. Your hand cannot tremble, your focus cannot waver, because a mistake, a tiny human error, is freighted with terrifying meaning. A line that is slightly too thick, a curve that is not quite graceful, a small smudge, a jagged edge, these are not mere imperfections. They are visual manifestations of Isfet. They are cracks in the sacred armor. A jagged line is a line of chaos disrupting the perfect order of the face. It is seen as a terrible omen, a sign of weakness in the wearer's spiritual defenses. It is an invitation for bad luck, for sickness, for the attention of malevolent spirits. The consequences of such a mistake are immediate. Your mistress would open her eyes and inspect your work in a polished bronze mirror. If she saw an imperfection, her reaction would be one of genuine fear and anger. Her anger at you would not just be for your clumsiness, but for your carelessness in allowing a symbol of chaos to touch her face. You might be harshly reprimanded, even punished, and she would feel a deep sense of unease her entire day, shadowed by the bad omen you have drawn upon her. The flawed makeup would have to be wiped away immediately with a cloth soaked in oil, and the entire high-stakes ritual would have to begin again. This is the tyranny of symmetry. It is a daily source of anxiety and stress in the pursuit of an unattainable ideal. The human face is naturally beautifully asymmetrical. This relentless quest to impose a rigid, divine, and artificial symmetry upon it was a constant battle against nature itself. It created a deep psychological burden for both the wearer, who feared the omen of imperfection, and the applicator, who feared the consequences of creating it. It is the perfect final metaphor for their entire relationship with beauty, a desperate high-stakes and ultimately stressful attempt to impose a flawless divine order upon the messy, imperfect, and natural human form. So far, we have journeyed through a world where beauty is a mask, a weapon, and a poison. We have seen the iconic kohl-rimmed eye as a symbol of status and a source of slow, creeping death. But the story, like the culture it comes from, is more complex than that. To see kohl as purely a cosmetic or even purely as a poison is to fall for a modern simplification. The truth is that to the ancient Egyptian kohl was a true multi-purpose substance, a tool that blurred the lines between medicine magic and makeup. Let's revisit the medical papyri. As we've touched upon, the Ebers Papyrus, the most extensive medical text of its time, doesn't list kohl or mesdemet in a section on beautification. It lists it as a treatment. It was prescribed by physicians for a range of eye ailments, from minor irritations to what they described as wateriness of the eyes. This seems like a terrible paradox, prescribing a lead-based substance to cure an eye problem. But recent science has revealed a startling possibility. Researchers have discovered that when these lid compounds come into contact with the skin, they trigger the human body to produce a massive increase in nitric oxide. Nitric oxide is a key agent in our immune system, a chemical that helps our bodies fight off bacterial infections. This suggests that the Egyptians were not entirely wrong. Their kohl did have a medical effect. In the bacteria-rich environment of the Nile Valley, where eye infections were rampant, the regular application of kohl could have acted as a prophylactic, a low-dose preventative medicine that stimulated the immune system to fight off infections before they could take hold. It was a devil's bargain, of course. The price for fighting off a swift bacterial infection was a slow, cumulative poisoning of the entire system. But in a world without antibiotics, where a simple eye infection could lead to blindness, perhaps it seemed a reasonable trade. Furthermore, kohl had a purely practical application. The dark lines drawn around the eyes work remarkably well to reduce the blinding glare of the sun, much like the black grease modern athletes wear under their eyes. In the brilliant, relentless Egyptian sun, this would have provided genuine comfort and improved vision. It was a practical adaptation to a harsh environment. So what was kohl? It was a cosmetic that created a look of divine beauty. It was a magical amulet that shielded the soul from the evil eye. It was a practical sunblock that shielded the vision from the glare of the desert. And it was a form of medicine that shielded the body from infection, even as it delivered a deeper poison. It was all of these things at once. This complexity is what makes the story so tragic. They were not simply vain. They were practical, they were devout, and they were following the best medical advice they had. They were poisoning themselves with their own medicine. The image we hold of ancient Egypt is one of effortless beauty. We see it in the serene golden death mask of Tutankhamun. We see it in the graceful painted bust of Queen Nefertiti, whose name itself means "the beautiful one has come." We see an image of perfect symmetry, smooth skin, and a natural, timeless elegance. This image, carefully crafted by the ancient artists and perpetuated by modern museums, is perhaps the greatest and most persistent myth of all. The truth, as we have discovered on our journey tonight, is that this beauty was not natural. It was not effortless. It was a complete and total fabrication, a triumph of artifice over reality. Let us deconstruct this myth, piece by piece. The flawless, youthful skin. It was a thick, heavy mask of toxic white lead paint, a stifling layer that clogged the pores and caused the very blemishes it was meant to hide. Beneath the mask was not perfect skin, but skin that was likely damaged, irritated, and prematurely aged by the poison itself. The full, luxurious hair styled in intricate braids, it was not their own. It was a heavy, hot, and often unhygienic wig glued onto a shaved head with beeswax. The symbol of vitality and youth was in reality a sweltering, itchy, and sometimes insect-infested helmet of dead hair. The dramatic, captivating eyes. They were not naturally so large or defined. Their shape was an illusion created by lines of a heavy metallic powder that slowly leached lead into the bloodstream, causing neurological damage and sickness. the healthy rosy blush on the cheeks, and the full red lips. They were a stain made from animal fat and earthy clay, a paste that could have been contaminated with invisible poisons like arsenic or mercury. The smooth, hairless body, as sleek as a polished statue. It was not a natural state of being, but the result of a constant painful war against nature, fought with tweezers and hot sugar wax, a process that left the skin raw and vulnerable to infection. The Egyptian ideal was not to enhance nature, but to conquer it. It was to erase the messy, asymmetrical, imperfect reality of the mortal body and replace it with the serene, unchanging, and symmetrical perfection of a god. The goal was to become a living statue. It was an aesthetic of complete control, a belief that the human form itself could be remolded into a divine symbol of Ma'at, of order and harmony. The natural beauty we admire in their art is an illusion that hides a world of pain, artifice, and poison. The real story is not one of effortless grace, but of a relentless, dangerous, and all-consuming effort to become something other than human. But what lies beneath this relentless pursuit of artifice? What can these complex, dangerous rituals tell us about the structure of Egyptian society? When we look past the ingredients and the techniques, we find that beauty was not just a personal choice. It was a powerful instrument of social and political control. First, it was a language of power, a way to make the social hierarchy visible on the body. The stark difference between the cosmetics of the rich and the poor was a constant daily reminder of one's place. The ability to afford true malachite from the Sinai kohl, from the desert mines, and perfumes from the land of Punt was a declaration of immense wealth and status. The farmer's wife, smudging her eyes with simple cooking soot, was using a different cosmetic language, the language of aspiration. This visual caste system reinforced the social order every single day. You wore your status on your face. Secondly, for the elite, these beauty standards, particularly for women, formed a kind of beautiful cage. The time and effort required to maintain this level of perfection was immense. The hours spent being beautified, the physical discomfort of the heavy wigs and restrictive clothing, the constant worry about maintaining a flawless appearance, all of this served to keep the noble woman's world small and focused on the domestic and the aesthetic. It was a form of control that was all the more powerful because it was voluntary, even desirable. But perhaps the most powerful form of control was exercised through fear. The belief that makeup was a magical shield against the forces of chaos was a profound motivator. This was not a belief that grew from the ground up. It was a theology reinforced by the priestly and ruling classes. By tying cosmetic rituals to spiritual survival, they ensured that the people would willingly, even eagerly, participate in them. You don't just wear kohl because it looks good. You wear it because you are afraid of the demon who might snatch your soul if you don't. You endure the pain of tattooing, not for fashion, but because you fear for your baby's life in childbirth. When a society's deepest fears, fear of sickness, fear of chaos, fear of divine punishment, are tied to its beauty standards, those standards become unbreakable laws. They are a form of control that requires no soldiers or guards because the enforcement happens inside a person's own mind. It is easy from the comfort and safety of our modern beds to look back across the millennia at these practices and judge them. It is easy to see the use of lead paint, crocodile dung, and unsterilized needles as bizarre, primitive, and tragic. We can feel a sense of smug superiority armed with our knowledge of microbiology and toxicology. But perhaps the strangest thing of all is not how different these ancient people were from us, but how unsettlingly similar. The story of their poisoned beauty is not just a dusty chapter in a history book. It is a mirror. The technology has changed. The ingredients are different, but the fundamental human impulse remains stubbornly the same. The ancient Egyptians poisoned themselves with lead and arsenic to achieve the perfect skin tone. In the 19th and 20th centuries, women and men used arsenic-laced wafers to achieve a pale complexion, and even used face creams containing deadly radiation, believing it gave them a healthy glow. Today, we inject a purified form of botulinum toxin, one of the most potent poisons known to science, into our faces to paralyze our muscles and erase our wrinkles. The Egyptians endured the pain of tattooing to invoke a god's protection. Today, people endure the pain of extensive and risky cosmetic surgeries, liposuction rhinoplasty implants, to achieve a culturally defined ideal of the perfect body, an ideal they hope will bring them a different kind of salvation, social acceptance, love success. The Egyptians felt a deep anxiety about living up to an impossible ideal of divine symmetrical perfection. Today, millions of people feel a similar anxiety as they scroll through social media, comparing their own real, imperfect lives and bodies to the carefully filtered, curated, and often digitally altered images of others. The core of the story is the same. The willingness to endure pain, to risk our health, to spend our resources, and to feel a constant low-grade anxiety in the pursuit of a fleeting, culturally defined ideal of beauty is a thread that connects us directly to that woman sitting by her coal pot 3,000 years ago. Her world of magic and gods may be gone, but her fears, her desires, and her willingness to pay a dangerous price for beauty are still very much alive in ours. Her story is our story, just written in a different language. And so, our long journey through the shadows of the cosmetic pot is coming to an end. Let us return for one last moment to the chamber of your mistress. The final ritual is complete. She rises from her stool and stands before a large, polished bronze mirror. She is no longer just a woman. She is a work of art, a living idol. Her skin is a flawless, luminous white. Her eyes are divine symmetrical portals outlined in the sacred darkness of the underworld. Her lips are the color of lifeblood. Her head is crowned with a heavy, fragrant architectural masterpiece. She is the perfect image of health, wealth, power, and piety. She is untouchable. She is eternal. She is a perfect manifestation of Ma'at. But we now see the truth that is invisible to her. We see the full, terrible price of this perfection. We know that beneath that flawless mask of white lead her skin is being slowly starved and destroyed. We know that beneath the perfectly drawn lines of kohl, a silent poison is seeping into her blood, beginning its slow, methodical march on her nervous system. We know that within the lungs of the servant who created this masterpiece, a fine, sharp dust is slowly turning the tissue to stone. We know that the body that looks like a timeless, unchanging statue is in fact a vessel for a creeping, insidious chaos. The beautiful image in the mirror is a magnificent lie. Centuries will pass. The new kingdom will fall. New dynasties will rise and crumble into dust. The armies of Persia, of Greece, of Rome will come and go. The great temples will fall into ruin, their painted columns fading under the sun. The names of the old gods will be forgotten, their rituals abandoned. The language itself will die. But the secrets of this ancient beauty will remain. They will not be found in the fading ink of papyrus scrolls, but written in a far more permanent medium, the very bones of the people themselves. Modern archaeologists and scientists excavating the tombs of the nobles and analyzing their mummified remains have untied the harsh knot of this story. Using advanced techniques, they can analyze the chemical composition of the bones, and they find what we now know to be true: alarmingly high concentrations of lead absorbed and deposited over a lifetime. They see the evidence of chronic anemia, of joint disease. They look at the skulls and see the dental catastrophe, the teeth worn down to flat nubs, the jawbones riddled with the smooth, hollowed-out evidence of massive abscesses. They see the physical legacy of a life of unknowing self-poisoning. The price of beauty was not just pain or effort. The price was their health. The price was their slow decay. The skeletons are the final witnesses, and their silent testimony is undeniable. And now, as the story fades, think of yourself. Imagine for a moment that you were not here safe in your comfortable bed, but were born into that world of sun and sand and gods. Imagine you were the noble woman taught from birth that your value, your status, your very spiritual safety depended on these rituals. Would you have had the courage to refuse them? Could you have looked at the coal pot and said no, knowing that it would mean appearing plain, unprotected, and spiritually negligent in the eyes of your peers? Could you have rejected the pursuit of a pale complexion when your natural tanned skin marked you as common? Would you have risked social ruin and, in your mind, the wrath of the gods for a vague feeling of ill health you couldn't explain? Would you have survived the social pressure? the deep-seated fear? Or if you are being truly honest with yourself in the quiet of this room, would you have made the same choices? Would you have accepted the risks? Would you have embraced the slow, invisible poisons in exchange for the very real, very tangible rewards of beauty, acceptance power, and divine protection? It is a question without an easy answer. And perhaps it leads to another. What slow poisons do we accept in our own lives today for similar promises? What risks do we take with our bodies? What discomforts do we endure? What anxieties do we foster to conform to the ideals of our own time? The ingredients have changed. The gods have different names, but the fundamental bargain remains. How much are we willing to pay for the illusion of perfection? But that world of sand and sun is gone now. It is nothing more than a story, a whisper from the past. The smell of lead powder and lotus blossom has faded. The sound of the distant Nile has fallen silent. You are not there anymore. You are not the servant. You are not the noblewoman. The weight of the wig is lifted from your head. The grit of the exfoliating sand is gone from your skin. The heat of the Egyptian sun is a world away. You are here. You are in your room, safe. Feel the real weight of your own blanket. Feel the softness of your own pillow. Listen to the quiet sounds of your own home. Let the past dissolve into dream. The journey is done. The story is over. There is nothing left to analyze, nothing left to think about. There is only the quiet of this moment. You are here. You are safe. You are breathing. Let your body feel heavy. Let your mind feel still. The history is over. Let the thoughts fade away. Let the darkness behind your eyes be a soft, warm, welcome blanket. There is nothing left to do now. Nothing at all. Just rest. Just sleep. Sleep now.